All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris the High Guy Jacobs, and today we're taking a look at another episode of the segment, Who TF Are You? Starring this week, we have the one and only Miska. Miska, welcome to the channel. Thanks very much for joining us.
Hi.
So first off, let's just give yourself a quick second here. Why don't you just go ahead and tell the viewers or tell the listeners here, the community, who you are, how long you've been in the game, that kind of basic thing about you.
Okie doke. My name is Stephanie, or Miska. I'm known as Miska or Lady Miska in the game, and that's been a gamer tag of mine for quite some time in various other games I've played. I live in Scotland, married to a Scotsman. I'm originally from South Africa, so I was born in South Africa. Came over here quite a few years ago. I'm not going to admit how many, so it shows how old I am.
If you don't mind me asking, what brought you from South Africa to Scotland?
Just traveling. For my 21st birthday, I decided to travel to Europe. My father was originally from England, and I wanted to come and see where my background was from, and was lucky enough to have a British passport because of him.
Yep, that'll
I came
help.
traveling and I never went home, so as far as I'm concerned, I'm still 21.
That's a total mentality. I mean, like I've always told people, it's not how old you are, it's how old you feel. I mean, at the end of the day, my joints are 90, but my brain is 14, so I'm somewhere in the middle. You know what I mean?
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So, again, you're talking about how you were, you moved over to Scotland, you married a Scotsman, you did a little bit of research into your history and stuff like that. But you've been in the game now for, you said about 2 years, you're coming on 3 here, right?
Coming up for my third Christmas, but I think it's really only 2 years because we started before Christmas. So probably about November time, I probably started playing in 22.
Oh, cool.
So,
cool. So you've had about 2 years of experience with it. So you've seen the game change a lot.
Yeah, I've been in region 30 from when we were just taking level 2 passes and level 3 into zone 3. So from my first...
From region 30.
Yeah.
So you've seen a lot.
I'm still there.
Well, I mean, it's not like South Africa, so you got to send out route somewhere else, and then you're going to go there. But in this situation, you've been stuck in 30.
Pretty much, yeah. I think I've been very footloose and fancy-free in real life, so maybe a bit of stability is good.
You got to have it somewhere. There's some balance there you need, right?
Yeah.
So what was it about Doomsday that brought you to it as well in the first place?
My hubby and I played a game called Rise of Kingdoms prior to that. And prior to that, Star Wars Commander. All very similar sort of role-playing games that very interactive community and everything. And it's the part I particularly love. My husband is far more on the technical and game side, and I'm in the chat. I just love chatting to people. I love connecting with people. And we were playing Rise of Kingdoms from early days. Played that for about 3 years.
Region 26.
And it started to die. Yeah, I think we were region 26 in that one. But it kept me sane all through COVID. When we were all in lockdown, I could talk to people all around the world and understand what they were going through. And that just kind of kept me sane. And so I really enjoyed that community side of the game. And it's important to me. I love the battles and I love some of the challenges. But yeah, the day-to-day stuff is pretty dull and boring, doing your daily tasks and all that sort of thing. So you have to enjoy the events and the community, because it's the community that's kept me going many times when I've wanted to quit out of frustration or annoyance or whatever. I've wanted to go, and I've thought of the friends I've made and the people I've connected with, across the world, which has been absolutely fab. And that's what's kept me going.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. That's something that so far almost everybody that I've spoken to has said about this game. Although it's a war game, although it's a it's a build-up real-time strategy, and it does follow the same premise of Rise of Kingdoms and State of Survival and blah blah blah. The real kind of linchpin in what makes this game so good is the community itself, is the connections that you make, the friendships that you make, and kind of the fact that it is opened up to everybody. I mean, gaming in general, to me, is one of those things that, just like you mentioned, is a way to connect us, especially in times when we can't normally connect, right? During COVID, prime example,
Absolutely.
right?
And I think what I love about it is it really connects you no matter who you are, where you are, whether you've got thousands to spend on the game or totally free to play, whether you green, pink, yellow, male, female, whatever, it doesn't matter. And to me, that's important. I think that's important in life. And I really enjoy being able to connect with somebody regardless of who they are and where they're from and, you know, what abilities or monetary value they have. It's not important. And you connect on an even playing field in that sense. You know,
Yeah,
you
we
all
used
come
to.
in at it.
We used to.
You're
Yeah,
right.
that's right. We used to for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, you mentioned here, I just want to jump here, just a sidestep just a little bit. You said you play games with your husband. How many games, like how often have you guys, like, do you guys play together fairly often?
Yeah. I mean, this is the third sort of role playing community based game series that we've done.
Yeah.
It started because I was a game widow and I used to get seriously pissed off at the amount of time that he played. You know, you're not in that flipping game again. And I think I was away one weekend and I came back and he had started an account for me. This is back in Rise of Kingdoms. And it got me to a certain level where I didn't have to worry about the annoying startup stuff. And then got me into his alliance and I got chatting to people and I just loved it. And it kind of went from there. And I became more addicted than he did.
I gotta give this man props. He knows the way to do it. Get your wife addicted,
yep.
and then you can do your own thing. That's good.
Very clever. Very clever.
Very smart man. That's good.
Yeah, so this is the third sort of series of games. And then we've always played online games. We play a lot of board games at home with family and friends. So we've always been into games, cards,
Good.
and, you know.
So video games and board
Dominion
games,
and-
they don't have a separate area for you.
No.
Good.
No.
Good. So, I mean, like I said, a lot of this is just to kind of get, you know, kind of an opinion from the player base and kind of see, you know, how they're feeling about the game, where it is now, where it was, and even where they think it would be, where it could go in the future, right? So let's talk a little bit first about when you first started. What was it about the game that kind of kept you in, besides the community and besides like...
When I first started, it was very much the excitement and the challenge of taking a new region and building and developing your alliance in your community. And as I said, or alluded to a little bit earlier, we all started at the same point. And yes, there were people who spent money, but it was not crazy amounts of money. And there was the opportunity even then, knowing that if you grafted hard, if you worked hard, you could actually achieve the same as those people who've paid money into it. Yes, it would take longer. It would maybe take me a year to get, or 2 years in this case, to get to my T6s, but I can still get there. That's changed, and that's really frustrating because, you know, I've played for 2 years solidly most days, and to be able to achieve and get to like my T6s and be excited about that, but then they change the goalposts and
it's just shifted it back.
Oh, totally. And suddenly, you know, I do spend some money, but I'm a very small spender. You know, it's monthly packs and that sort of thing. And
so, I mean, if you don't mind me asking, what do you spend in a month? Like on average?
Yeah, probably between 30 and 40 pounds a month. You know, I think I used to buy, I have stopped now, actually. I used to buy the monthly gem pack. I used to buy the what do you call it? That one where you get the privilege pack.
Yeah, like this subscriber specific
thing. And then a few others during some of the events. I would you know, buy the $9.99 or the whatever. But I wasn't spending hundreds of pounds. Can't afford to. Both of us playing, family life, the whole thing. I just can't afford to do that. And
so we'll bring it back here to where we are, where the game is now. Because I didn't mean to sidetrack. I just kind of wanted to get kind of an idea where we were going. But so we went from a situation where, like, I agree with you, it was very free to play, friendly in that situation. It was very balanced back then. And now where do you think it is now?
now I think to achieve anything, you have to spend a lot of money. And sadly, what happens is that you'll get the people who spend a lot of money, and I don't begrudge them that. I have no problem with anyone. If they've got the finances to do it, go for it. If this is what makes them happy, go for it. But what I don't like is that you can get some people who have absolutely nothing and they put in the hours every day and slog and they get nowhere, and a guy can go and drop $500 and he's way ahead. And it's frustrating and it's annoying for those players because they quit. And then what you'll have these super mega whales who all they're going to do is play each other.
Yeah.
Because nobody else can compete.
That's
and
right.
then that gets boring for them as well. It can't
Mhm.
be exciting to be the safe me and the hands and the whatever and playing the same guys over and over again, meeting the same people in every AR, in every island raid, in every dark seal. Or when you meet other alliances, they just rolled over. We constantly, being a young or an old region, I suppose, 30, we were constantly being matched up there in the number 1 to 10 G, and we couldn't compete. And we did the best we can, but you get criticized, you get put down because you're not on 24/7 and you're not putting in the graft and you're not awake at 3 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock in the morning. And I just think that's a little bit sad. And the pressure comes because they have invested so much money and they want a proper gaming experience. But we can't keep up. We just can't keep up.
Not only that, but what I think a lot of people are starting to experience is that the game is far less like, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. I can appreciate having the need for a pay to win model. I can appreciate having the need for, certain avenues of revenue. If you're going to maintain a game like this and you're going to maintain, servers and things like that, I totally understand the cost associated with it.
Absolutely. They're a business at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And I can totally appreciate that. However, what I've seen and what I think the problem that we're experiencing now is that the game has moved from a pay to win model to simply a pay to play. Like the reason the whales are getting tired as well is because they're no longer spending to get ahead. They're spending to stay even. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like with so many different releases that they've released so quickly with, they've gone from armaments to vehicle mods to, upgrades to parts to all these types of things. And then now an upgrade to vehicle mods. So like in such a small window of time. I mean,
in the last 5 months.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, you've been playing the game for 2 years.
4 or 5 months. It has been insane the amount of things they've dropped to get ahead, to stay even, as you say, for some of these big guys. And it's not even that. It's just crazy things like skins, that give you such a small advantage, but cost
Lewis
money. Sorry.
Lewis skin.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go and start a new account in one of the 400 regions and they're given it at the first pay. You pay $4.99 or $9.99 for Catherine and Cynthia or whatever, and they're getting skins that other people have spent hundreds of dollars on. That's going to piss people off radically.
Well,
not only that, how much money you've got, but nobody likes to be made a fool of when they've spent their money.
Well, not only that, but they don't tell you of those changes. It's up to the community to discover them. For example, and I'll give you another one, Master Jin was typically available from VIP 11, but newer accounts were having access to him at VIP 9. And when I brought that to the developers to say, hey, what the heck's the deal with this? They said, oh, that's just a mistake. They shouldn't have that right now. But I'm like, but that's tied into your like, why would you accidentally put that into your VIP system?
Yeah.
It's not an accident. You did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
And like you mentioned with the Calamity Sisters, like you go from releasing the Lewis skins, which the Lewis skin is subpar, right? I'm not I'm not afraid of saying it was a grift for money for sure. Because then they released the Calamity Sister skins and they were far better.
Yeah.
And cheap.
The Calamity Sisters have always been expensive in every, you couldn't get Catherine. Was it Catherine? Yeah, Catherine without a VIP paying.
Yeah, it was 300 American to awaken her. And then 400 for both skins. But now new accounts are getting the Calamity Sister as getting Catherine's skin at VIP 11 or whatever, net 10 or whatever it is.
I'll let you know. I've started one.
Where's mine? Where's mine?
Yeah.
Bastards.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it is frustrating. I get that they have to keep evolving and they have to try and keep it fresh. But you know what? Keep it fresh by developing better events and better challenges. Not the same old that they put Genesis War for 3 weeks on the trot, for goodness sake.
Exactly.
Finally, they heard us on that one. But, you know, they took away a couple of other events that most people loved.
Dark
Yeah,
Seal.
you always can have people hate and love Dark Seal. You know, have people who hate and love Island Raid. But you had a lot more fun with those than we did with Genesis War. I mean, Genesis War has great potential, but they messed it up again by changing so many things. The times of battle, limiting it to 1 battle a day. It just, unless that time works for you, I'd wake up in the morning and everything was done. I'd be like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Now
So
what am I going to do?
so
Farm for the day on my 4 nodes.
Or not only that, but you accidentally forget that you're out front and they burned you by the time you come back because you know you didn't wake up and they attacked
You
into
fell
you.
asleep at 2 o'clock in the morning waiting for the 4 o'clock battle. You know, it's just.
And I think that's.
I work full time for a living.
Yeah.
I can't stay up until 4. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, that battle time for me. And, you know, that's when it starts. And then it lasts for an hour and a half. I can't do that and get up and go to work at 7 o'clock every morning. It's insane.
It doesn't work for a lot of. I mean, it's very specific to one demographic. It's very specific to one specific area of the world. And I think that's, you know, even when they had 2 battle times, at least there was chance to get on for one of them. So there was a chance to, like, even if you didn't do the first one, you could stomp the second time and you still had a chance at ranking in the rewards.
But there's such a simple solution.
Yeah, Pompeii.
Make it choosable like Pompeii is.
100%.
I mean, Pompeii times aren't brilliant either. They've messed that up. You know, the latest time is 1900 UTC. That's 8 p.m. for me. That's 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. for most of Europe. For some of us, that's prime family feeding time or putting kids to bed time, which is fine. Once a week, you can do that. But they just need, you know, for America, depending on which part, left or south, whatever, east or west you are, it can be 7 hours, it can be 5 hours difference. So some of them are just waking up in the morning, getting ready for work. How do you play a game for an hour when you're getting ready for work in the morning?
Well, exactly. Our Alliance plays at 19, and that's 1 o'clock in the afternoon for me.
Yeah.
Now, if I worked a conventional job, like if I had a conventional existence, that would be pretty impossible. I know a lot of people who take a 1 hour shit break just to be able to play Pompeii.
Exactly. And that's fine if you have that kind of autonomy in your job. But I know people who play this game who are nurses.
Mm-hmm. Good
Who are
luck.
mental health nurses who, you know, work shifts, who, you know, they just can't take an hour off. Yeah, if you have an office job, you can maybe do an hour's lunch break. If you're lucky that it falls around lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
But why can't they stagger it? They have 2 choices. They can either change a registration time like they do for Pompeii, and therefore you will automatically, that will help with the matchmaking because it'll stick people in the same time zones. Or you can go to some sort of way of rotating it.
Right.
So
that was a good suggestion.
The battle time is at 1300. The next time it's at 2100. Well, then that, you know, mixes up. There's no favoritism then to one regional area.
It's balanced.
You can rotate it over 3 or 4 different times. You can do a 4 o'clock in the morning, a 1300, a 2100. You know, you just rotate it.
And I think also, because you did mention this in regards to matchmaking, it would help with matchmaking in multiple ways. But I think one of the biggest things they have to do in regards to matchmaking is open up the amount of alliances. In AR, for example, they've limited it now, only 2,200 competing. Well, if you think about it, there are over 600 regions. At only 2,200 competing, that's 3.5 from every region, right? So we're no longer looking at 5 from every region, the top 5 from every region. Now it's 3.5 from every region. But now it's more from the younger or from the older ones and less from the younger ones.
Yeah.
So all the participation is lopsided.
Yeah. So get your devs working on that rather than another way to spend money.
Yeah.
Spend the time developing the game where it's actually playable and you won't have so many people quitting.
Well, I think that's kind of what their ideology is currently. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this seems to be the way that a lot of these games go, where it's like they see a certain pinnacle happen where maybe they didn't hit a certain, like maybe hypothetically their worlds wasn't as big as they thought it was going to be. So all of a sudden now they realized, okay, well, we're seeing a decline in something. We have to readdress that. So they're going to throw out as much content as they can, right? To dump out as much new stuff as they can, to give it as much shine. But they don't realize that the majority of their player base can't take actual effect of all that stuff. The majority of their player base is not whaling $400, $500, $600 every single event to be able to play the game. They're like yourself, playing $30, $40, maybe $100. Like I spend about $150 a month, $100 to $150 a month. But that's only on gold, because I buy 100 American worth of gold when they do the 20% gold bonus, because I'll take a free extra $20, right? And then that kind of withstands me for 6 weeks or something. But most of their player base is not doing that. Most of their player base is maybe $5 a month, $10 a month, or free.
And surely you would want a few thousand people spending 10 or $20 a month than a couple of, I don't know how many mega whales there are, but there can't be more than 100 spending $4,000, $5,000. I don't know. I don't know what they spend, but it's a lot.
It's true. And
because I look at what they've bought and it's a lot of money.
Yeah. And I guess the truth is I don't really know what their top end, how many like mega whales that they have. So it is kind of biased information coming from the fact that I'm not a whale.
Yeah, because we'll only know the people we know,
right?
The people you connect with. But there's whole demographics out there that we don't particularly know. I don't know half the Korean players and the Chinese players and the other Asian players because they're not in the chats I'm in. But you do meet them across certain events and you get an idea.
Yeah.
But and in the new regions, there's loads who are spending a lot of money just to advance quickly. But will they sustain it? I don't know.
That's the big question. I think it comes down to whether the developers want to run a marathon or whether they're sprinting to the end. Whether they anticipate this going, the way of Rise of Kingdoms quicker, or whether they want to sustain it more like like the Fortnites or the, League of Legends.
Now, there are other games that started to decline and they managed to rectify. Clash of Clans is one that was absolutely on the way out and down the toilet. And according to my son, apparently it's a lot more fun again. And they've sorted some things out. So it can be done. But it's like you say, what is their end goal? Is it, a few years and they know it's going to be done and they'll move on to the next thing? Or is there some longevity in it?
Exactly.
And I would love it to be some longevity. You do make friends and you do make communities, and it would be much nicer to keep playing with the same people and make it exciting.
And to have your time feel like it's worth it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I would be I don't care how much you've got in the bank, but it can't be a good feeling to know you've spent thousands on the game and then it's going to be whooped away from you.
Yeah. I mean,
and there's so many of these guys that I know of that have been quitting recently or taking a back seat because they just can't sustain and they can't sustain the pressure. And when a game is no longer fun, when a game becomes stressful and a job on top of my day job, then it's time for me to go.
Yeah, exactly.
And, yes, some of these big guys, they have other people that play their accounts and they do the day-to-day drudgery and tasks. Some of them have all these bots that do the healing and the gathering of resources. Well, that's great. I don't. I play the old-fashioned way. I keep at it and I keep chugging along. And I quite like that. I like that I'm doing the same as everybody in my alliance. And I'm, fighting alongside them and standing up for them and fighting their corner. And that's important to me. And that's what I kind of got into the game for.
Right. And I think that's what Ali mentioned a lot of too. one of the best things that she's liked about this, and one of the things that she always takes away from it, is the community side of it, is the capability for it to feel like a family, for it to feel like those connections that you do make. I mean, I don't know how many times in my own game I end up talking to players about real life problems, you know, not just game issues, but like connecting on a real basis, right? And, you know, for like an individual myself who doesn't get out of the house very often, I mean, most of my existence is unfortunately in front of the computer. It's difficult for me to make real life friends, but it's much easier to at least have that, you know, that social experience inside of the video game.
You know, I've met people on this game who are physically disabled and don't get out much. And this becomes a whole lifestyle to them. I know other people who are quite lonely, and if they didn't have the friends that they can connect with through their alliance, through other chats, through events, you could see people really struggling in life. And life's hard, and it's become harder after COVID. So many more people are isolated, and their mental health was affected by being that isolated. That unless you have some sort of outlet like this, for a lot of those people that don't have family, don't have friends, who are kind of on their own, whether they're marginalized by society, whether they are just naturally introverted, it makes a huge difference. You are somebody else behind the screen. And I always try and remind people we're still human beings. When I do something as Lady Miska, like I did in the last AR, and I screwed up big time by doing some daft stuff around a flippin' tower that I didn't have any clue about, I learned. You know, I've been playing for 2 years and I'm still learning lessons every day. But if you can't connect with those people and you just get a barrage of insults and aggression, you know, you've got to take a breather and realize that these people are human beings. And you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, emotionally, mentally, physically, what's going on in their lives. How can you just talk to people like that? How can you be so aggressive? How can you be so rude? And I have to say, out of the games I've played, mainly because I suppose I choose the people I talk to, but on the whole, this has been quite a good platform. I haven't had a huge amount of abuse. Occasionally, in a couple of events where I stick my nose in and stand up for things I believe in, I'll get some abuse. But I'm quite thick-skinned, and if I'm starting to get bothered by it, I just switch off and walk away. Some people can't, and they go away and they are really cut up by it, and I think, really affected by it, and don't come back for days on end.
And I think that's sad.
Scary.
It's sad. It's sad. Because
it's sad, but it's scary because there's power in our hands as human beings, for good or for bad. And if you are so aggressively negative to people, you could really impact somebody's life in a very bad way.
I have to admit, though, the beautiful part about the Doomsday community is that, and again, there's a handful of opposite cases to this. But I have been warmed by how wonderful the community is on average, right? The average Doomsday player is quite accepting, is quite understanding. The average Doomsday player wants the average player to get better. They want the experience to get better. They want, you know, their alliance to get better. They want you to grow stronger, right? They're trying to teach you ways to get stronger, and to help you specifically. Like, that's the beautiful the part about like the English chats and the language chats. I mean, don't get me wrong, they can get a little crazy, right? They go through, I like to think that they go through shifts, right? They go through their racist bigots, then they go through their random languages that aren't English, then there's a stint where it's really good people for a while, and then those good people leave and it goes back to the people who don't speak English, and then it gets all racist again. So it's just like a really nice little, you know, if you can catch the dips on those channels, it's good. But
and you missed out all the sex chats.
That, I mean, those are, I kind of clue out as soon as it goes to the non-English part, because the translator's drunk. You know, that translator sucks.
Yeah. And you're right. There are some amazing people in this game. That's what keeps us going. I mean, I met you through a chat group that are some very experienced players. who really just want to help others. And it's been a great group to be in, and it feels like a safe space. I can go in there and say, I really don't know about this, so I'm doing something stupid here, or is this right, or is this wrong? And they can help you without any judgment, without any aggression, any negativity.
Right.
And that's great. That's what I love about that particular group.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's hundreds of those. You know, everybody has their group that they can go to for that sort of information. If you didn't have that, you know, we would all just give up. We really would.
At least we would end up quitting the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, at least we would, I mean, the game would end up dying that way. And I said this with Panda too, because the conversation is always like, you know, where do we see the game in the future? You know, obviously what's the devs plan for it? Is the game dying? Blah, blah, blah. But I've always wanted to make it clear. It's not that it's dying and then it's going to go away tomorrow and that the game won't exist. It's that it's dying in the sense that the active average player is losing access to it. So
yes, and probably the length of time that they'll play it.
Right. So following that analogy, it's dying in the sense that it doesn't have the same vitality that it had even 6 months ago, right? And that's what we're starting to see too, which is super unfortunate for me because I just realized I started making YouTube videos on this about 6 months ago. So I'm catching the back end of it when it was so good. But so let me ask you one last thing here. We've been chatting for a while. We're going to get this wrapped up here. I got one last question for you before we do. If you could tell the developers any bit of information, any advice, or any kind of bit, like if hypothetically one of them was watching this video and you could tell them directly what was one thing you would want changed, or one thing that you like, or one thing that you like appreciate, or where you could see it in the future, like what would you tell the developers directly?
I'd say get an advisory committee of your players.
Oh, that's smart. That's smart. Talk to the player
Get
base.
a core group of players who can, from big spenders to free to play, who can tell you exactly how the game is playing out. Because it doesn't matter how good you are as a developer, unless you're playing it every day, you're not going to have a real understanding of what the changes, what impact those changes bring.
That is absolutely true.
Get a little committee, get a little feedback group, something where they can meet up once a month, once every 3 months, whatever it is, to talk through some of the changes, what's working, what isn't working, how can we improve it, what would you like to see? Do that. Listen to your players, and you will have a game that'll last for a long time.
I like that. I like that. And it's, I think it follows the same premise as what we're talking about before when it comes down to, is this a race? Like, what kind of race are we running? Is this a marathon? Is this a sprint? Are we getting this done in a year? Or are we wanting to be here 5, 10, 15 years down the line?
Well, I don't know. I'll probably be dead in 15 years, but, you know, I'm an old lady.
Oh, come on!
I am. I'm an old lady.
You don't look a day over 30. Get out of here.
Will be beyond me by 15 years time. I'll be like saying to my son, what do I do now? Where do I click? How do I do this? So.
What about armaments? I thought it was about armaments.
What are armaments? I don't know what they are.
Back in my day, we had to deal with parts.
Back in my day, they had elephants that trailed your troops around for you. Woolly mammoths. Yeah, I would like to see the game going for a few more years yet.
Yeah,
I really would. I'd like to see it around for the next 5 years at least. But it'll only do that if they actually try to listen to their players.
And again, I want people to understand this entire segment that I'm doing here is not, it's not designed as a way to bash developers or as a way to bash the game by any stretch. This is done specifically as a way to get the actual understanding of what the community is feeling. And
absolutely.
Right. So that's what we've noticed is that so far it's been very, very similar. The premise, you know, people are experiencing it the same way. And I think that, you know, like we've mentioned, there's a disconnect between the developers themselves and the community player base as it stands.
I mean, it comes down to the fact that we play this game because we love it.
Exactly.
It keeps and holds our interest, and they need to make a way for that to continue. If it was boring, if it was absolutely just dire, we wouldn't still keep coming back.
So I wouldn't log in, that's for sure.
Kind of sound like we're bashing the developers. We're not. They've done a great job. They've created a great game. We would just like to keep that going, and we'd like to see it improve in a way that's fairer and more equitable across the board, and so that we can continue to have fun with the community we've developed.
Exactly.
And that's the important part as far as I'm concerned.
Well, exactly. And it kind of brings up my last thought, which I've always, always kind of caught me as an interesting thought process. If you look at the helicopter, for example, a helicopter in the vehicle space is actually a pretty darn good investment. It's $500, so it's expensive as shit, but the amount of attributes that it gives you is actually pretty decent. Okay.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a question. Have you personally purchased the helicopter?
No.
No. Would you purchase it if it was only $100?
Probably. I would ask for it for a birthday or a Christmas voucher or something. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think that becomes
and
a
if I
common
could do it in
practice.
installments, buy 10 fragments or 50 fragments
That's
a month,
right.
I would do it.
Yeah, I would get it in 2 months.
I would do it.
It would take me some time, but I would get it in 2 months.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
100%.
Perfect. Well, we're going to end it there, Miska. It's been an absolute wonderful conversation. I've absolutely had a blast having you on here, learning a lot about, you, like I said, coming from South Africa, that's probably one of the farthest countries I think I've ever met somebody from. So consider yourself lucky on that. That's fantastic. You guys have been married a long time, 19 years. That's crazy. I'm getting there myself. Yep. But we're going to end it there, and I'd like you to, obviously, before we go, just let everybody know what alliance you're in, what region you're in, and obviously, if they want to say hi, be nice.
So I'm from ZDC in Region 30, and yeah, we've been loving it and living it for 2 years, and it's a lot of fun.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, folks. Well, that is it for this episode. Thanks very much for tuning in. I've absolutely had a blast today. Don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share the video with your friends. Make sure that we get this message out to as many people as we can. If you'd like to get involved, if you'd like to be interviewed by me as well, feel free to reach out to me. As we've mentioned, or as I've tried to mention, this is a segment I'd like to open to everybody. I'd like to get some free-to-play players. I'd like to get some brand new players. I'd like to speak to some veterans who've been here for a long time, so we can kind of start to see what the community is thinking in general, right? So if we can get that, by the end of this, I think everything is kind of a win-win. We start to hear the community. We start to put fixtures to it.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Chris.
No problem. So that being said, folks, that is it for me today. I love you all. Love, peace, chicken grease. And until next time, stay lifted.